si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buon pomeriggio.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the second appointment with a talk, an event promoted by the Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà here at the Rimini meeting. This year, we're going to focus on the future of the Italian welfare. We have a cycle of 3 meetings. Yesterday, we started with the emergencies and needs of the elderly people. Today, we will focus on the needs of other families, those who are the caregivers of children and the disabled. As Monsignor Paglia said yesterday, we also want to look at how we should rethink about our towns and the places we live and the way in which we should build the cities. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of Enrico Castelli as well. Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for following us in the Sussidiario website. We have Gaetano Manfredi, the mayor of the town of Naples. And then we have Mario Abadessa. He is quite well known to the people of the meeting. He's the #1 of Italy of Heinz, one of the main property groups working in Italy. And then Mr. Mauro Billetta. He's a protagonist of the rebirth of an entire neighborhood of Palermo. Then we have Monica Poletto, She spent her whole life in the third sector. She's the coordinator of the technical legislative table of the Forum of the Third Sector, and we will have a look at what we're talking about. Welcome to you all. Welcome to you, and I would like to. So we have Professor. Online, we have Professor Blangiardo, Professor of Demography, University of Milan Bicocca. He's an expert of demography. Let's start from demographic data to introduce today's topic. Good afternoon. We will reach you in a few minutes. We would like to start from Istat data. There's an emergency that the decision makers do not seem to be focusing on. Let's think about the long waiting list at our hospitals. It's a common experience, and the requirements of places in kindergartens, which are not enough in many towns of Italy. And these are not local problems. These are signs of a trend which is starting to become quite evident. We have the ISTAT data. Let's have a look at the ISTAT data, starting from the first figure. Referring to the births in Italy, the so-called demographic winter, less than 400,000 births, reduction by 3.6%. This is 1.2, the number of sons or daughters per woman. The people aged over 65 in Italy. Over 14 million people are aged over 65 in Italy. This is a comparison with other countries, Germany, France, and Spain. We have the highest percentage of people aged over 65. And there's a third figure referring to the employment and the prospects for the next 20 years. A decrease by 6 million in the working population. These are objective data which bear witness to the emergency we would like to focus on. Professor Blangiardo, I would like to ask you, with these figures, when it comes to the Italian welfare, how long will the Italian welfare be sustainable? This is quite a difficult question. I believe nobody can give an answer to this question. What the data are communicating, the data you presented and other data that we may monitor. I mentioned people aged at least 90. 850,000 of these people are aged 90, and within 40 years we're going to have 2.2 million people aged over 90 years in a country in which we are losing kids. So the scenarios that we are monitoring are launching several signals. We are living a situation in which we are extremely fragile. We have a structural fragility. The population is getting older and older. We have an emergency when it comes to families. We have a reduction in the number of newborn children. Many children are lone children, and so the aging process makes families weaker and weaker, and they are not able to provide for the family welfare, which has always been a pillar of the country. These are two important elements, and then we have a third element. This too is a critical, important critical element: resources. If we analyze the situation, you've mentioned the working age population, hence the workforce, the ability to produce, to have resources, and to have GDP, to redistribute incomes. If we continue moving towards this direction, we will miss about 10 million potential workers in the next 40 years, and in the next 20 years we will have 5 million working people less. So there are margins to reverse this trend. Otherwise, we will find ourselves with the per capita GDP decreasing by 18%. So I believe you can easily understand what this means. 6,000 euros of GDP per capita, which will disappear. So we have a growing difficulty and a lack of resources and means to face the situation. So we can say that the answer, when you are confronted with these situations, is that of activating all the rest, other types of networks, subsidiarity, activating situations in which everybody does his or her part and works to try and solve a problem, which at present we are now imagining future scenarios. In a few years, we will be experiencing these future scenarios. We should be able to be equipped enough to face these scenarios. We will not be able to say we didn't know it. Demography and statistics are giving precise objective data. You can either heed us or not, but we are telling you now what the possible future would be. Thank you very much, Professor. You've touched upon a very delicate point, a very delicate, thorny issue. Mr. Manfredi, the mayor of Naples, so we have limited resources, complicated, the situation is complicated. We are living a political period in which we only discuss about the present, about today. We do not think about tomorrow. We do not think about the future. You, as a mayor of a complicated town, city as Naples, what does it mean to manage these dynamics? Well, today, we are experiencing a transformation of the social situation of the entire country, which is rapidly changing vis-à-vis the situation of the past. And we often take decisions starting from common places, lacking a detailed knowledge of the problems and the needs of the various areas of Italy and of the various areas within the same town or the same city. I will give you an example. Having a look at the topic of kindergartens. Naples is a city which is a city and a world at the same time. You have everything in Naples. There are differences when it comes to income, school levels. You have enormous differences between Scampia and the Vomero, two areas of Naples. There's a greater difference than the difference that exists between northern and southern Italy. If we are not able to grasp these differences, in the end, we will not be able to provide solutions. If we have a look at the offer of kindergarten places in Naples, paradoxically, in the neighborhoods when there are less kids, the gentrified neighborhoods where more women work, there's an enormous demand for places in the kindergarten. In the peripheral areas where there are more kids, but where women and mothers do not work, or the minority of them work, there's a lower demand of places for the kindergartens. And in the neighborhoods where there's more marginalization and more need for early schooling, because that's a factor of greater resilience vis-à-vis school dropout rates, we had kindergartens with vacancies. So using the same method in two different areas of the town is completely wrong. These are two different communities having different needs. So how did we work? In the area of the Vomero, we increased the offer of places for kindergartens in order to provide, to give an answer to the needs of the working mothers. In Scampia, on the contrary, we needed to build the demand. We needed to act so that people decided to take the kids to the kindergarten. So we needed to build this necessity involving the families, the mothers, and focusing on a welfare that is devoted to families, having a look at the problem related to housing, the training and schooling of parents. So we built some examples, such as the Fondazione, the Foundation Figli di Maria, which is located in San Giovanni a Teduccio, which, in addition to carrying out territorial education for kids, we also train the mothers. We also educate the mothers. They can attend courses, they can attend social activities, they can be included in the labor market. And in this case, this is a welfare action focusing on the family. It is not possible to have a standard approach in the entire country, and it is not even possible to have a standard approach in an individual town. You need to know the needs of the various neighborhoods. For instance, you need to bear in mind the presence of migrants, different communities, having needs and different needs and different habits. You need to know them, and you need to have a system focusing on the needs and the requirements in a detailed way. carrying out a public-private action along with the third sector and working on an offer that has to be integrated and a targeted kind of offer. Only in this way will it be possible to provide a concrete answer. I would like to show you, and I would like to show you all, another example of response, which is not standard. It is an example of response that was a sort of a case history. This is a case history lasting for 50 years, and it refers to kindergartens. We go to Emilia-Romagna. If we think about the winter, the demographic winter as it was defined, one of the problems for young couples is the lack of services able to support children. Not only places in the kindergartens, despite investments, this is a very costly service. So I will show you an example, a virtuous example of a collaboration between the private and the public sector, starting from the kindergartens.
Quando si entra nella scuola Diana entri nella piazza. La piazza è il cuore della scuola, quella su cui affacciano tutte le sezioni, su cui affaccia il grande atelier, i cavi interni.
This is the Diana School, and you can see the atelier, the kitchen. This school was opened in 1970, opened by Professor Malaguzzi in agreement with the local administration. It is in the heart of the city, near the public gardens. This is a project that has the environment at the center. And the first public school was opened in 1964, and the project still lasts nowadays. It is a project that joins nursery schools and kindergartens. Well, the municipality invests 12.7% of its budget for nursery schools, and then progressively we have involved more institutions. The municipality manages 21 schools, preschools, and between kindergartens and nursery schools. And then also some private parties have started working with us, creating a very well extended and well organized network of services. Now, more than 50% of children between 0 and 3 years old attend our nursery schools, and almost 100% of the children attend our kindergartens. So there is participation, collaboration between the private and the public sector. This is a very well-balanced system.
Indubbiamente negli ultimi anni noi stiamo assistendo.
Undoubtedly, in the last few years, we have seen an increasing demand. So there's been an increasing demand for children at nursery school, and the nursery school has a cost of around 200 euros a month. Public and private are together. So the local institutions manage directly the nursery schools and the kindergartens. And then there's a network of FISMA schools, 75 in the entire province. The education is based on the values of the Catholic Church. This is Cavazzoli, a neighborhood with more than 1,200 inhabitants. This service was started in 2014. It is called Scuola dell'Infanzia Maria Vergine Madre, welcoming children from 6 months to 6 years old. And so there is continuity in terms of timing and spaces. we have educational principles which are based on collectivity, community, and communion, putting dialogue at the center in order to guarantee growth, humanity, and the evangelical values that are part of a Christian world. We welcome everybody because schools are everybody's schools, and we all feel at home.
Insomma, lo diceva, però
So, Professor Blangiardo, we can't reach anything by ourselves. We need to work together, create a dialogue. The Foundation for Subsidiarity, Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà, is preparing its annual report. This year there will be a chapter on the territorial welfare. What we've seen, do you think this could be an example of territorial welfare? Good afternoon to all of you. Yes, of course, yes, this is a great example of welfare, territorial welfare. And with regard to collaboration, I was listening to Professor Balangiardo, and I thought that we could provide some more data. Actually, I must say that I was very impressed when I read the recent report by the Parliament on the situation of addiction in Italy. 20% of minors in 2023 tried some substance, and also poverty that has become systemic poverty in Italy. Why am I saying this? Because all of us who work in the social field, we all know that this is the reality. And you know, there are social problems in big cities, but actually everywhere. And this social poverty is also quite of a new problem after the pandemic. We have seen, as well as elderly people, we have realized about the condition of many young people. And why am I telling you about this? Well, first of all, because I'm really impressed, and congratulations, Mayor of Naples, on what you've done. And clearly, these are current needs, and we don't fully know about the current needs. Every time we read some new data, we ask ourselves, how is this possible? And then you also realize that in Milan, you have to wait for 7 months before you can get inside the community. And, well, of course, welfare has to be a certain type of welfare. You know, people don't have just one need. People are human beings with many desires and many needs. So who's going to take care of that person, of that complex person, considering that families are fewer and fewer, and communities are very fragmented. So what I'd like to say is that the third sector, of course, it has to exist. We have to make all the attempts that we can, all of us, all together, as much as we can. We have to be there. The third sector can't just start playing at the middle of the game, of the match. Of course, the third sector has to be present from the very beginning. We have to sit around the same table trying to understand how can we work all together from the beginning. And so, again, as we said, the public, the private together within an alliance that has to try and reach a common goal in the interest of every human being. This is all. This is all from me. I wanted to stick to the time you gave me. Thank you. Monica. Actually, I'd like to go back to what you said. We often underestimate some needs, starting from addiction or dependence, and also poverty. And of course, public institutions, private institutions have to work together in order to design and create new places. About this, I'd like to talk to you. There's a project in Milan right now. This is an urban regeneration project. Can you tell us more about that project, and also how are you taking into account the needs of the population, the new needs of the population? Thank you. And Well, I hope I'm up to the level of the panel, and these are very high-profile speakers and topics. I'm an investor. I'm a businessman, and of course, I have financial gains. And what I do is I'm in charge of real estate. So real means that we build practical things, tangible things. We are convinced that, of course, we can keep on talking about demographic data. We can keep on talking about welfare systems, the best ones, the most sophisticated ones. But it will be useless if we don't have a container for them. So I'm sorry, I'm going to mention some very practical things, but if we don't have this container, in my case, it's real estate, so living solutions, homes, houses, all these contents, which are all beautiful, will be sterile. And yeah, I'm sorry to be here to talk about money and the building sector. You know, in Milan, we are really hated by the population. It's like taxi drivers. But then when you talk to taxi drivers, you understand why they complain so much about their job. Well, in Italy nowadays, we have to be very honest. In the past, it was a need. Today, it has become an emergency. There's an absolute, total living emergency or household emergency. So if we don't have the houses, the flats for the students, for elderly people, for families, for young professionals, then it will be impossible to keep on talking about all the other problems like unemployment, for example. We will have minus 17% of labor force. So this means that we will need to import from abroad. We will need to import workers from abroad. If these people don't have a house, they will never come to Italy, and therefore Italy will be less competitive. So this is an emergency, and it's urgent. So, you know, the newspapers, the political world always try to limit, to reduce the demand of the tourists. But instead, and, you know, I studied, but you don't need to go to university to understand this problem. The demand will keep on growing. It's like a river. You can create some banks to contain the river, but then if there are students going to the big cities, if there are students who need to go to the big cities, well, you mentioned the demographic winter. You wrote people over 65 years old, silver. Actually, I would write gold. You know, 65 years old nowadays. These people are resources for us, and they need to be in the cities, not out of the cities. So this is why this is our project. I'd like to invite you to visit our exhibition just next door in the other hall. And we're trying to regenerate the former hippodrome in Milan. We are generating 800 flats and 300 of them for elderly people. So there will be staircases, toilets dedicated to the elderly, specifically designed for the elderly. So what we're trying to do, especially in Italy, but actually in the entire southern European region, we'd like to make people realize that this is a business. These are business opportunities. It's not just about solidarity. It has to be business, otherwise it won't be sustainable in the long run. And we don't sell flats. We build flats or houses for rent. We have 4,500 beds. In Italy, 500 of them are in Florence. The other ones are in Milan. They are all on hire, so to be rented. And what we want to do is we want to join welfare and private investors who, of course, want to invest their money. They want to have a social impact, but at the same time, they need to have a return for their investment, because otherwise, of course, we'll be committed, socially committed, but we want it to be sustainable from all points of view. And with the municipality of Milan, we did this experience for the first time. It was an experiment we did in Milan, and it was extremely successful, financially successful, socially successful. So your company is not a no-profit company. This is interesting. The political world is not considering these needs as an opportunity, as a business opportunity. As I said, it is a long-term investment that will generate an economic return. Well, you know, as I said, you don't need to be very smart. You don't need to have such a university degree to understand this. Do you think it is better to have luxury houses for less than 5% of the Italian population, or maybe accessible houses for 95% of the Italian population? Well, in Milan, there are students, 50% of the students are coming from out of the region. And, of course, they need a flat. I'm curious to know what Fra Billetta thinks about it. We have invited Fra Billetta here. He is the protagonist of another experience based on the regeneration of a neighborhood in Palermo. So now let's see a video, and then I will give you the floor.
Nel cuore antico di
In the ancient heart of Palermo, a few kilometers from the center, there's a neighborhood called Danisini, which doesn't even seem a piece of Italy. It seems an urban area of the peripheries of the world. The state has always been tragically absent from this neighborhood. No public services. Even the school was about to be demolished. Danisini today is no longer an area that was abandoned. It is the story of a rescue, of a sort of a resurrection. 10 years ago, when with the other friars, we came to Danisini to follow this parish, we found a neighborhood that had been totally neglected with no public services, no public garrison apart from the parish. We've worked a lot over the last few years because we could not simply stand still and watch. The right to the future, the right to health of our people were totally neglected. So the group of friars started a work that soon involved the entire community. A kindergarten was created, and the uncultivated land became a vegetable garden. There was a B&B created, and there's a playground for kids and a circus for children. So they decided to give an answer, to provide an answer to the needs of people, of those who made some mistakes in the past, led to the creation of some medical services. You are called Uncle Gianni. What do you deal with? I deal with young people who have been in jail, and we also deal with a farm, and we feed the animals. Paolo, what do you do here? I work here. I am 41. I was in jail, and I am free on parole. I made some mistakes in the past. I've almost done with my penalty. I still have 4 years in jail. And we activated a cooperative here in Danisini. I'm very glad because we are building laboratories, workshops, warehouses, and our cooperative is restructuring them, and we are working as much as we can to help other people who have experienced jail. Danisini is a sort of an open building yard. New projects will be developed thanks to the help of people from this area, from the locals. Danisini continues to grow, and this process needs being supported with planning. Indeed, I have a double task. I am a psychologist, a voluntary, and also an urban planner. Along with the team supporting the planning activity, we try and draft projects. We try and manage these projects in order to bring resources and funds for the well-being of this community, for the operators, for the children, and for the entire community. So the urban and human regeneration is a welfare model starting from with a bottom-up approach, thanks to the collaboration between the private and the public and private sector and the social sector. And this is indispensable for the entire community. So, Praia Mauro, a circus, vegetable gardens, kindergarten. I would like to know which method you used in your work over the last few years. Well, after 10 years, we can make a first reflection ex post. We discovered the method by doing things. Basically, we listened to the requirements of the people living in the area. We breathed and we experienced the local context. There are many people working and devoting their times. We have many retired people. We have many people working with us. Many of them come from previous experiences in jail, because we need to experience the gift of the community and of life. We need to know that each of us can be a gift to other people, and we can provide gratuity-based activities. This is a circular subsidiarity pathway. Each one recognizes the role of the others, even of the profit companies, as well as the public institutions, as well as the role and the importance of the role of the social private sector. There was a first cooperative that was created with with young people who have been previously in jail. We are getting aid from many sectors, as Pope Francis would say when he said in 2021, while he was talking about social movements, he talked about social poets. So we need to work so that everybody can find a motivation and guard this motivation. So all this can be summarized in a process which goes beyond the appearance. Theoretically, we don't have any economic resource. The parish is in a peripheral area of the town. So when we are contacted by the people, they are in need. We receive the gift of the encounter with human beings, but we are a Franciscan parish, so we have practically no resources. But this is not the point. We've never been scared by this factor. The real resource is the richness, the wealth of humanity. We are all children of God, so being able to recognize, to give back dignity, and this was a basic principle. We needed to go beyond the appearances, because we could not accept that our reality could be so marginalized. In Palermo, 98%, there are many people from Palermo here, 98% of people of Palermo did not even know the existence of Danisini, which is located 800 meters from the seat of the Sicilian parliament. We said, well, it is impossible. There was an emergency at that time. You needed to provide immediate answers to the needs of people. You needed to provide food, or the gas bomb. You needed electricity, the glass bottle. We could not accept that our people remained crushed in a single moment, in the moment of the present. So after a first year of listening, of building a relational fabric, after we were given by the private sector some dwellings that were strategically important and that had to be restored, we decided to create a library for the neighborhood instead of a wardrobe for poor people. You can favor the expression of a dream in a child, but you need tools. You need tools. Otherwise, you create frustration. In a small dwellings, it is not possible to study. But if you have kids, experience how beautiful it is to build your own future, but de facto, you have the adult responsibility to build this process. So the educational center with many educators, the library with the nuns, with the volunteers of the civil service to accompany and to custody, so to say. You cannot focus only on one segment of society. Through a systemic action, you need to have a look at the entire existing situation and entire existing population. The parents, many of them with a precarious job, many of them had been in jail, and so the farm was created because they needed to have an opportunity. Everybody is able to live a good life, but we need opportunities. So as a community, we felt this responsibility. We felt responsible for this. Then a further step. At that point, I need to be clear when we talk about circular subsidiarity. We think that mutual recognition is on a symmetrical plan, not from top down. We had to struggle for 10 years so that a kindergarten and a family counseling service remain closed. Think about the consequences. You close, you shut down a public service, you create repercussions. So we had to struggle, and after 20 years, today we've managed to obtain the kindergarten that was restructured. We paid for the project. It was received. There were resources available because that's the way politics works, not always, but at times. So at that point, today, it is about to be opened. And there's a debate, there's a controversy in these days because we communicated that on the 9th of September, the kindergarten will reopen. It's a challenge for us, but it cannot be only the interest of a local community. It should be the interest of everybody. A very concrete example. So we saw in Milan an agreement between the public and the private sector. In Palermo, a social sector with the public sector. What is the pathway in Naples to amend a social fabric? Making up for the social fabric needs to go hand in hand with the regeneration of places. This is a very important kind of topic. The degradation of places is also the degradation of the community itself. And this is a point we strongly believe in. We should regenerate not only peripheries within the perimeter of the town, but also peripheries within the center of town. We have several of these peripheries within the center of town. Some of these places have become places welcoming lots of tourists, the Quartieri Spagnoli, for instance, but there are other places such as Borgo Sant'Antonio, which should be regenerated. So regenerating places is very important, and this is a fundamental task of the public administrations, because bringing urban decor and urban decor back, bringing back the right to a dwelling is of fundamental importance. So we must not forget that Italy, after the Second World War, had been destroyed, and it started to live again thanks to the plan for schools and plans for dwelling. These were two fundamental moments to rebuild our democracy. So thanks to the housing plan, it was possible to rebuild Italy. This is something we should not forget today. Today we need a big plan for houses, for the dwellings, which is a fundamental right. We need to work in synergy with the public sector, and we also need a strong presence of the private sector. I agree with that. The public sector alone cannot do anything, so we need to mobilize private resources as well. And it is also important to have a program, a project for a social recovery of the community. And it is of fundamental importance for us to have a sort of a control room, including the public and private sector, and initiatives should not be simply based on charity. At times, we think that we should simply resort to charity. It is important, but it's not what we need in the end. You can resort to charity as much as you like, but what we need today is a plan, a project for social recovery of communities, including putting together the foundations, the private sector. We have many foundations which are investing in Naples, and we took up this commitment to build new places for aggregation, public libraries, places for medical assistance, healthcare. We put the public sector together with the private sector. In Ponticello, we have a healthcare facility. We collaborate with emergency. We have general practitioners, and there's a building owned by the municipality. So we put together three entities, three subjects, which have become a point of reference for a community, which in many instances is not even strong enough to ask for health. And health is a right. It is not enough for us to provide a service. You need to bring the service to the people in need. In many cases, all the people who are marginalized are not even able to understand what they should ask for. They are not aware of their rights. They are not aware of the fact that they can ask for schooling for their kids. So the topic of proximity, the work that is carried out by the church, representatives of the lay communities and the associations is fundamental. They are sort of an in-between in order to bring rights to people. People in many cases do not even know they are entitled to rights and to things. This is what we should do to build a better Italy, I think. Thank you very much.
Professor Blangiardo, non ci siamo dimenticati.
Professor Blangiardo, we have not forgotten about you, don't worry. Absolutely. So house services, very often they are considered as the two main problems. People don't have children anymore because there are not enough services for children. There are not enough houses. Do you think they are the main reason for the demographic drop we're seeing right now? Well, there are many reasons, actually. The cost of having children, taking care of them, and also reconciliation, especially between maternity and work. But also there's another problem, culture, the context. That is to say, it's not sufficient to create the right conditions in order to eliminate the problems. But we also need to create the conditions in order to support these choices. Sometimes people may say, well, not now, we'll wait, we'll have children when it's time to have them, when we have the right conditions, but then it might be even more difficult. So we need to have the right conditions. The community has to understand that investing in the human capital is fundamental. So just individual measures are not sufficient. We need to have collaboration between European countries. We need to have something very well integrated and coordinated. So we need to make sure that it's not just the state, but also local institutions, administrations, the private social sector, companies, the business sector. Everybody has to contribute because these are problems, common problems that we all need to face. I think we need a cultural jump forward in order to understand the dimension of the problem, who has to make the effort in order to face these problems. Of course, the state is very important, but we need to have a common effort, a joint effort to a same direction. Only by doing that, we will need to govern this current trend and will manage to go out of this demographic winter. Thank you, Professor. So it is a co-responsibility. And we know that the third sector can be a protagonist. There's a draft law. And Dr. Poretto, I'd like to refer to you. This draft law has introduced the topic of co-designing. So thinking about the projects together before implementing the projects. Is the public sector ready? Well, as well as the third sector, well, I'd like to say that the third sector is very different. It is very fragmented, very diversified, diverse. Well, I'd like to ask the same question since I see Progetto Arca, Fondazione San Gaetano, Piazza dei Mestieri. I'd like each one of them to tell us about their projects. We don't have time, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I just wanted to mention them. I'd like to say that the third sector has grown quite a lot. It's grown a lot, really. It's become much more professional. And, it's very complex to work in the third sector. Well, there's not a real market for the third sector. And at the same time, in Italy, the third sector is very small, even if it is fundamental for communities. The third sector is facing this huge challenge of involving young people in being volunteers. The reform of the third sector has introduced these words, co-design and collaboration, and they are the base for subsidiarity. We need to join forces before the need comes up, not after the need comes up. So the third sector is ready. Yes, I think it is ready. And I know I don't have a lot of time to speak, so I will just conclude my comment by saying that the third sector is ready. What the third sector needs is to join forces. The big ones supporting the small ones, and also looking outside and opening up to other parties outside of the third sector. And I see that there is more collaboration in our country. Thank you. Fra Mauro, I have a question for you. Can you tell me, well, is there anything that is impressing you? You told us about collaboration between the public and private sector, but what kind of collaboration is in place at the moment? Well, for sure, I see that there's a lot of trust and solidarity. As I said, we didn't have any economic resources, but the main point of strength was the ability to create, to collaborate with some foundations, for example, Fondazione Azimuth, Bismara, many foundations, but also many private individuals, many families that gave their land to us. They put their land at the disposal of the community. We would like to have a food forest. We'd like to have an urban forest, a place where people can meet, but also a beautiful area to live in. So what is still surprising me is that it is possible to regenerate, but at one condition, as long as we're all part of it. So in fraternity, everybody inside. We can reach fraternity and brotherhood only if we recognize our brothers and sisters and the people who are near us or next to us. Thank you. Well, the project in Milan seems quite clear. I heard, as you said, you build real estate and most of them are for rent. And some of them are used for students. Why have you made this choice? So do you think it is worth investing in the social sector? Well, we did it because, as the mayor said, it's not enough to build houses, but we also need services. And in fact, the housing plan that was defined or passed just after the Second World War some very virtuous investments were made by the state, and I'm mentioning Levele area, but they never thought about afterwards. They always worried about satisfying the urgent needs. We are not traders, but our investors want to have a long-term return by renting, giving houses for rent. I always need to think about the future, and this is what we always do. I must say that Porto Franco's people have been very skilled. They invited me to have some coffee together, and when we said goodbye, well, I gave them 5,000 square meter flats. So they were very, very good, and they managed to convince me very well. So for free. We don't want to have profits in the shorter term. And in Milan, if I had to sell flats, it would be very profitable. And we even restore flats, not just build flats. But if I build 800 flats to at least 2,000 people in an area, and well, if in that area we also provide the services, or there are services like after-school services, there's a market, if there are some other services given for free, so a free rental, in order to provide services, this will have a very important social impact. I'm sure about that. We have investors in Northern Europe. They've always done it since the 80s and the 90s. We have German, Dutch investors. It is true the economic return will be lower, but it is guaranteed in the long run, and this is what we are interested in. So sometimes people criticize my choices, and they say that I always work for marketing strategies. This is not true. I make my choices because we have to guarantee a return to our investors, and I'm sure that by giving to the community this very important economic value, we also have long-term guarantees. This is my job. As I said, I don't do trading. I need to guarantee long-term returns to the investors. Thank you. Right, and now going towards conclusion, and I'd like to conclude with a kind of a provocation. We talked about assistance, support to the elderly. Today we talked about services to young people, but actually we should talk about disabled people. And this time we're going to show you an experience. I don't know if this experience can be repeated or replicated somewhere else, but anyhow, the need for assistance is transformed into people sharing their living experiences. Let's have a look at the video. In this community, Mirabilia Day, near Varese, we have 5 families living with 22 disabled people who have found a house and a job here. This is a community that continues an experience started in 1982. Replying to the question of a disabled young boy who asked, what am I going to be when I grow up? These are people we found in the supermarkets, people that came to us in different ways, by knowledge or through social services. And we are part of the Lombardy region, and of course we're part of a network. And people in need are introduced to us. We always welcomed everybody. Welcomed to a family home, family community, 24 hours a day, all year round. They share their daily life and they work in the workshops. One is a workshop for the production of jam and marmalade. So we wanted to guarantee continuity, so by doing things that are useful, and as a consequence, people increase their self-esteem. This is another workshop, so show them what you do. We've understood that by doing simple things, we make it possible for people to commit themselves. They have always observed reality, and the cooperative decided to, as we said, have two workshops, two business activities. One is in the electromechanical world, and the other one is about making jams. We process peaches in syrup. So we understood that it was, well, we wanted to peel the peaches and then we started making peaches in syrup. We understood that it would be a very nice resource. Everybody has to do his or her job based on their skills. The main aim is to provide a job within the community, and they also provide jobs within the local community. And the alliance with the local community has grown year by year. We have an excellent collaboration and relation with the local institutions. They ask us to help us, and we welcomed some people that were not just disabled. We had oncological patients at the end of their life. As long as they could, they lived with us, and then they were admitted into hospital. What is fundamental is to listen to people, and co-design is one of the pillars for this community. You know, people are at the center. We have to listen to the people. We have to listen to their needs. And by listening to those people, we feel fine-tuned with people. Well, we have seen that sometimes people are deaf instead. Institutions are deaf. People don't want to know about other people's experiences, especially politicians only think about their choices and their interest. So we don't have to wait for the political world to help us. We want to collaborate with the entire community, with businesses, with everybody, not just with the world of politics. All right, we have just seen this example. We wanted to show you this rare example where they have managed to respond to social needs. During these days, we're starting to realize that public-private collaboration is necessary, but it's not enough. We need an intergenerational alliance between young people, the elderly, and of course, we also need individuals to take responsibility. All right, so this is all, and we'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. And we will ask the same questions to the political world, to the Undersecretary, to MEFA, and also some presence of Italian regions. After listening to Cardinal Pisabarra on the first day, the meeting has decided to give one part of your donations to the Holy Land. Thank you. Thank you.
La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.